Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening's parent webinar. Tonight, we're going to talk about sibling rivalry, and it's me and Samantha Rottaro who's going to be your host for tonight. Samantha is at Curro, and she's an educational psychologist, and I'm an educational specialist. Sam, when we talked about the topic, you said you're also not the best in this.
No, I'm just a mom when it comes to sibling rivalry.
I don't think anyone has got all the answers. So, what we're going to share
No.
tonight with you is from our own experience with our own children as well. But a lot of it has got to do with our experience. So, I thought I would just start off by talking about what sibling rivalry is. So, sibling rivalry is common, and it's a natural part of growing up with brothers and sisters. So it is characterized by competition and jealousy and arguments, but it is a natural thing. So if you think it's only happening in your house, no, it's happening everywhere. So, and there are various factors that can influence it, including age differences, personalities, and then also family dynamics. If mom and dad is not often at home or working far away, getting home and late at night, all those things play a role in sibling rivalry. And then also it can manifest in different forms, from verbal disputes and bickering to physical confrontations and sometimes competitions for achievements and recognition. And that competition for recognition sometimes play a big role. But despite these challenges, sibling rivalry can really be viewed as I said, as a natural, and it's a beneficial part of being a child because it promotes so many things as well. It teaches you about conflict resolution, about negotiation skills and empathy among siblings and fostering their personal growth and development. So it plays also an important part of growing up. And the role of parents obviously is crucial in managing sibling rivalry. So, and that's why it's important for us to talk about it. And I've got a few questions if you wonder if sibling rivaling is a thing in your home. And by just thinking about these questions, it gives you an indication like, do I find myself comparing my children to each other, either aloud or like sometimes in your thoughts? And how do I respond when one child tells me about their achievements or their failures versus another child telling me that? And do my children seem anxious or unusually competitive about ordinary family interactions? And am I giving equal attention to each child, especially about for their interests and activities? Because sometimes we are more interested in something and you share interest with one child which you don't share with the other one. And how often do my children argue or fight? And what are my children's relationship like outside of the family? And do I encourage my children to work together on tasks or projects, or do I avoid it because we know it's going to end up in a fight and don't want to handle the conflict? And then how do I handle conflict between my children? Do I tend to take sides? Do you or your partner tend to take sides? Does it end in the two of you fighting about what children are fighting? So, sibling rivaling is a complex thing to think about. So, Sam, as someone who knows a lot about children's how they think and feel, why do you believe siblings often fight, especially with how families are today?
I think a lot of it is, like you said, it's natural and it's practicing for standing up for myself, practicing for finding my way in the world and my spot in things. We're all so busy, and even when we were on on farms, living in villages, and there was still sibling rivalry because it's natural to find your way. And having sibling rivalry is a safe space. Like we always say, being in school is a safe place to make mistakes. It's a good place of learning. And sibling rivalry in the family is a safe place to fight. It's a safe place to test your boundaries, to practice having your own boundaries, and to finding yourself, finding what am I good at and where am I perhaps stronger. But where the parenting plays a huge role is Everyone has their strengths. And just because you are better at unpacking the dishwasher doesn't mean you are a better person than the sibling. And that, that is where the crucial element of sibling rivalry comes in, and where we as parents have the most impact. But for children, it's really not a conscious, I hate my sibling, even though they say it and they throw things and they, it is very much just, I'm practicing how to have personal boundaries. I'm figuring out what a boundary is and I'm practicing how to put it in place properly. And it's us that need to guide it.
Very important. It's
Mm.
us who needs to guide it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how does it affect your child growing up, and how does siblings fighting affect how a child does at school and acts around others. So I think it's important to think about what is the impact on their school life and their schoolwork. Constant fighting at home can really make a child feel upset or distracted, even the next day, and it impacts their ability to focus on schoolwork. And many times when we talk to them, they will tell us that there was a fight. And that this might lead to poorer performance in school if it happens often, because then they can't concentrate properly. And sometimes we think it's something else, but it's just because there are a lot of fighting at home. So if children frequently fight with siblings, they might also start behaving similarly with their friends or their classmates. So they will then mimic the same behavior, bring the same behavior to the classroom. So aggressive behavior can then cause problems with other children. Parents complain, and it might lead to them feeling left out or getting into trouble at school. And then interactions with siblings are often how children learn to make friends. So if these interactions at home are mostly fights, it can also affect how they deal with other people. So they might find it hard to make and keep friends if they use the same negative behavior, language, and all of that which they use at home. So they bring that to school. And then regular conflicts with siblings can leave children feel sad, insecure, or angry. And these feelings can really show up at school as mood changes or pulling away from friends or not wanting to join in on activities. And it also has a big impact on their self esteem, because siblings can really make children feel bad about themselves. They can keep on putting them down, and then low self-esteem, as we all know, make it less likely for them to speak up in class or to make friends or to take part in group activities. And one sibling can really have this impact on another sibling. And then the stress from home, the fights can cause behavior problems like not listening, feeling anxious at school, or then also not getting along with others. And children might become overly clingy sometimes, or on the other hand, might want to do everything by themselves and keep it to themselves. So the stress from home can really make a child less motivated to do well at school. And they might see school as just another competitive place, which can make them less interested in learning. So, Sam, let's discuss a little bit about like kids are when they are fighting for mums and dads' attention. I think that's sometimes a big problem. Parents might accidentally make their kids feel this way. It's not something that it might be in your blind spot. What can they do to help everyone feel more loved and included? And I think it's the point here is also to talk about love languages. I think you should start the conversation with that. Are you muted, Sam?
See, I'm
Uh,
hiding my sibling rivalry in my house.
so if you
It's
can
imp-
start again with the
yeah.
with the love languages.
It's important that we remember that children are individuals and siblings are individuals. Especially if they're close together, we tend to buy them the same jeans, buy them the same clothes. It's just easier that way, two for the price of one. And we just manage it like that. If you're doing homework, we're all doing homework and so on. But it's important to acknowledge the differences. And that's where this term love languages comes in that you mentioned now. And every person has their own love language. And although it can change over time, it is part of a person from a young age and it develops and changes, but it's important to acknowledge what your child's love language is. And so we can build their self-esteem by providing space for that. And some of the love languages that we see are words of affirmation. So perhaps your child responds to empathic language, just I love you, I see what you're doing, you did that so well, that's wonderful. Or it might be physical touch, where one of your children prefers to be hugged, the other one doesn't really like to be touched. Or gifts. Often gifts has got the same value for a child as what words of affirmation or hugs has. Or quality time, acts of service. These are general love languages that we see in a household, we see in people. And it's important to know your child, what speaks to your child, and in that way you are conscious of giving the child what they need. So even if you're running around and you're busy and somebody, they're fighting for your attention and they're squabbling, get down, hug the one that needs the hugs. Know which one needs hugs, know which one needs affirmation from you. And in that way, you're sure to give them what they need, rather than focusing more on the one because they respond to your love language, perhaps, rather than you giving them what they need. So it's about knowing our children, knowing what they need, and then acknowledging that they're different, acknowledging that they have their own love language, the things that mean the most to them. So, often I will find my boys squabbling over, and I think it's absolute trivial nonsense, but for them it's important. And the squabbling doesn't end because I say to them, that's nonsense, stop arguing about it. Because to them, it's really important. But for the one, I need to literally call a timeout and leave him to calm down, and then we can talk about it. The other one, I need to send in the garden to go jump on the trampoline before we can discuss what's going on. And in so they each have their own way that they handle it. The common ground is out, time out, separation. That's the same. But how they actually work through it and are ready to regulate and to come and discuss the situation, that is different. And I have to acknowledge it and I have to allow that. So I can't say to my oldest son, you're not allowed to go jump on the trampoline when I know that's what he needs, and expect them both to go lie on the bed for a timeout, because it's not going to work. I'm never going to get the regulation I need to enter into the discussion of what started the squabbling in the first place.
So glad you discussed the love languages because often we say that children compete, for their
Hmm.
parents' attention. And by understanding the love language of your child, it makes it much easier to give that attention because giving attention is a very abstract concept.
Yes, it is. Many of our children can't understand that because you are doing an act of service, making the meals, helping them tidy their room, that is perhaps your love language, but it doesn't speak to them. And so you end up in this vicious cycle.
Sam, another thing I would like your opinion on is how do you praise children equally? Again, with because some children like it differs from child to child. So how
Yeah.
do you praise them equally so that they feel they get the same amount of attention?
It's so difficult because you're only one person. And, to have to adapt the whole time to what siblings needs is really, really difficult. But to praise equally is to praise to what speaks to them. So you might have a child that loves to do academically well. And so you take note of the academic achievements. But you might have another child that really enjoys being creative. And then you need to praise that side because that's where their strengths lay. So it's about knowing the child and what speaks to them. You'll never be able to praise equally, but you'll always be able to identify and highlight strengths. And it's about a mindset. It's about I'm going to normalize difference in my home. I'm going to normalize individuality, and I'm going to give you the affirmation and the love that speaks to you and helps you to regulate so that we can understand arguments and this battle for my space and who you are.
So when it comes to giving equal attention, I've got the five
Mm,
finger rule, which usually works well. And I have a rule for each finger, and it makes it easier to remember. So the thumb is, I always say, is for support, because the thumb is
mhm,
strong and versatile and symbolizing the support parents must provide. So offer an encouragement for individual interests and efforts,
mhm.
and be present at events that are important to your children.
Important.
So that support helps a
Mm,
lot to make them all feel that they get the same attention. And then the index finger is the one that points, direct. So like pointing direction, the finger reminds parents to guide their children. So
mm,
teach values, set clear expectations, use guidance to direct children to make wise decisions. And that's what this finger is for. And then you've got the middle finger, which I'm going to do like this, which is the tallest one, and it
mm,
represents a balance within the family dynamics. That balance
mm,
is very important. So ensure that the attention and resources are distributed equally with love languages in mind, and give as much as possible acknowledgement to each child and their unique needs and circumstances. So you have sometimes children that are more successful in families than other, but you
mm,
need to find that uniqueness and still get that balance. And then you get the ring finger, which is the traditionally associated with commitment, such as those in marriage, and the finger symbolizes strong emotional connection. So what to do is to foster a deep emotional bond. Get to know your child. So get that emotional bond with each child through quality time. We don't have always have quantity time, but you can have quality time. So when you have time with that, make it quality time, understanding their feelings and showing empathy. And then the last one is the pinky, which is the one we always forget about. But this one is all about protection. So although it's the smallest little finger, it's essential for the strength of the hand and the grip. Without it, we can't grip anything. So symbolizing the protection that parents must provide. So protect each child's individuality and self-esteem by advocating for them and shielding them from harmful situations, both physically and emotionally. So that's the five fingers. So if you to remember it, the first one is
mm.
support, and then direct with your finger, and then balance, and then you've got connect, and then it's protect. Those are the five essential things that you need to keep in mind when you distribute attention in your house. So
I
Sam,
think
drawing
you.
from
I
your
want to. I'm going to just jump in. Sorry, I want to talk
Mm,
about. I love the
mm,
5 fingers. It's an awesome way to remember it. The directing finger. You know, we often forget that we need to teach our siblings. Teamwork makes the dream work. We need to speak the language before we can expect it. And life gets busy and they grow up, and before we realize it, we've never actually read stories about teamwork. We've never expected teamwork. We've never had it as part of discussions or values. So when my boys were younger, it was a mantra in the house: teamwork makes the dream work. And I used to look for YouTube videos and social stories. And now to this day, when mom starts frowning and then one of them will chirp up, oh, teamwork makes the dream work. It's very funny now that they're teenagers, but back then it used to work. But it's about creating that culture in the home. And that's where directing comes in, teaching the skill, teaching that I need to understand why my sibling reacted the way they did and what I did that maybe exasperated the situation or what I could have done to help the situation calm down. That's very important when it comes to directing. And then the protection. We often try and protect the younger ones, and sometimes it's the younger ones that are the instigators and the troublemakers. And it's important that we have, as parents, that we have a one size fits all stop to any squabbling. The time for regulation, the time for rationalization, the time for discussion is not in that moment. And you need to have, as a parent, you need to bring in the protection by having a one size fits all stop. Whether in your house it's a time out, to go to your bed, it's a sit on the couch, it's a climb the tree, whatever it is in your home, whatever works in your home, you as a parent need a one size fits all. And that's protection. Because only after you get that, where the parent steps in and protects and takes control, then we can regulate and understand and discuss what led to this.
And then I always say with that, you connect before you
Yes,
correct. So you need to
that's it,
find that
exactly.
time to connect with the child before you
Yeah.
correct it. So if there was sibling rivalry and there was a fight, don't deal with that in that moment.
Mm.
Calm them down, handle it as you said, and then afterwards you connect with them in a proper time so that you can discuss it, and then you can correct and direct the proper
Yeah.
behavior on how to handle it. If it's counting or deep breathing or whatever you could have done
Mm.
to calm yourself down, but connect before you correct is the good rule. So Sam, tell us a bit more about how to help kids struggling with their brothers or sisters at home, even if it's at school, but also at home. How can we help them to do it?
Well, as teachers in the schools, children bring the stories to the classroom, and there we can chat through it, use it in the classroom as discussions. And at home, it's always important, like I said, have that one size fits all. The parent takes control, and then to understand. If the same conflict happens over and over and over again, usually it does. Usually it's the same game that causes the problem, or it's the same toy, or it's the same glass that everybody wants to use. You need to problem solve with our children. I know that there's lots out there, lots of research about problem solving, but at the end of the day, it all comes down to we cannot expect it if we don't teach it. So talking through and understanding why it happened. Now, like in my house, for example, when they were little, I couldn't do that all the time. When you're working with grade R's, you're working with grade ones, you can't always, because these things explode, and you're cooking supper and you don't know what's happening. So I had one of those sibling t-shirts, the massive t-shirts, and I used to put them both in that t-shirt and then say to them, okay, now you figure out how to get from this side of the house to the other side of the house, because right now in that moment, nobody can tell me what the conflict was because they're so dysregulated and they don't have the language. So when your children are younger, you need to look at, visual things that make it tactile for them to understand that what I did was not the right way and this is the right way. And as they get older, regulating and then discussing. I think it's extremely important when we talk about helping children is teaching conflict resolution, teaching walk away, teaching take 5 breaths, teaching the whole idea of asking each other what happened, how did that happen, what can we do next time. So teach conflict resolution steps in helping children, depending obviously age appropriately what can be done. So Johan, from all that you know, how important is it that families have regular activities and routines to help siblings to get along better?
Routines is really one of the magical things when it comes to sibling rivalry. I think a routine is one of the magic recipes for raising children. So if you have regular activities and you have routines, it's so much easier to raise children. So spending time as a family doing fun activities really helps siblings grow closer because it's an ideal opportunity to equally give them attention, and when they enjoy shared experiences, they're more likely to feel connected and supportive of each other. So that is a real to have quality family time is just as important as having quality time with your child. So they need both, and they need a good balance of both. And then regular family routines give siblings the opportunity to interact positively with each other, away from the pressures of conflict. And that's what you said when they did things together as team. Teamwork is exactly what I'm referring here. And then it becomes positive moments, although they might kind of, you know, differ when they have to unpack the dishwasher. It's all part of growing up, and that's for me is kind of positive conflict management when they kind of sort each other out of how what this is one is doing this and what that one is doing, and then
Yeah, so
activities like
when
team
there's more on the top
sports.
shelf in the dishwasher, there's more on the
Mm.
top shelf than the bottom shelf.
Yeah.
It's problem solving when they start counting and sharing.
And then also, if you really have a problem with sibling rivaling, is encourage your children to take part in team sports or group projects. But team sports are really helping children a lot. I often see that when they join the soccer team, the coach and the role models there and the way that they teach them helps a lot because they bring those same values and principles of being a gentleman or whatever on the field, they bring home. And the same with girls. When they join the netball, the hockey team, they learn and the certain values and ways to get along there, which they bring home. Because they also have conflict on the fields, and then the coach is helps a lot to bring that home. And then having a routine helps children, and to have a good structure. They feel secure, and I think when children feel secure, there's definitely less anxiety, and there's also then less conflict. So because they know what to expect, and this stability can really reduce stress and conflict among siblings, because most of these fights sometimes happen because there's just no structure or no routine, and then they start fighting about whose turn is it and who's going to do this and who's going to sit where. And then family activities often require communication, and whether it's deciding what game to play or planning a family outing. And this practice really helps siblings learn how to talk and to listen to each other. I think that's one of the things that we really need to direct children on how to listen to others. I know they're egocentric and they still forming their identity when they're teenagers, and it's all about them and their worlds, but you still need to model listening to other people, to them, and direct them, because it's really crucial for resolving conflicts. And also model listening activities between two partners. That's the best way for them to pick it up if they see that their parents are doing it. And then also to share routines, as Sam referred to, as teamwork, but also routines that they need to do, chores that they need to do. Be fair, they have to do that. They need to take responsibility, because that also helps them a lot. Sam, I would also like us to discuss a little bit about easy way parents can help kids to talk about their feelings. I think it's very important because a lot of the times children don't know how to tell a brother or the sister how they feel, or when they are offended. So how can we help children to really express how they feel, their feelings, to be emotionally literate? Because an emotional literate person is very good with many things.
Yeah. So, as with literacy of any form, it's using the language around them, making sure that we discuss and talk through the processes. Once they're regulated after a squabble, to then discuss, but how did you feel when Joey did this and this and this? And asking Joey in front of their sibling, Joey, how did you feel when Jack did this? So it's really about that openness, making it okay and giving them the language. So, they might say, oh, I hate my brother. For us as parents, that's when we stop and we actually say, but hate is a big word. What did you not like that they did? Was there something you didn't like? But we always love our family. So then you have conversations around the difference between loving family members and not liking an action and
And give them the
disassociate.
vocabulary like,
Yes,
do you
exactly.
feel frustrated? Do you feel
Yes.
angry? Do you feel, so that they kind
Yes.
of recognize that emotion and give that emotion a name.
Yes, exactly. Labeling those emotions goes a long way. And then, like you said earlier, role playing it and making sure that they understand what happened. So, we were mowing the lawn on Saturday, and the boys were emptying the grass out of the lawnmower. But my youngest son had a fabulous idea that he wanted to use, and the older one wasn't interested. He just wanted to get the job done. And so there was a big fight, and eventually all the grass cuttings landed on the freshly cut grass. it was up to me to stop everything, and then we had to role play. So I had to say then, what did you want to share with your brother? What could your brother have done differently? And at the end of the day, they were able to discuss what happened. He was able to share his idea. His brother was able to say, you know what, that's actually a good idea. I should have listened to you in the first place. And then they moved on and got the job done. But we are often in such a hurry to get everything done because, we have limited time. And we're running around and supper and everything. But those moments, those 5 minutes that you take can make the world of difference in your home. So it's always about being aware enough to know when to pause and take the time to talk through and share the language and give them the language to actually work through the situation. And there's often times when you can't. I have at times driven with a water pistol in my car and just like shot to the back seat because it just goes so crazy. And you can't stop, it's just life. But that's okay if you are being in touch enough to pause when it's important and give yourself credit as a parent. As long as we are aware and we take the time to pause when we can and empower the children with language when we can, I think that is the best way around sibling rivalry.
I'm dealing now with back chatting, which
Ooh,
is, I think, one of the things that push parents over the edge when your
yeah,
when your teenager is back chatting you, which is, I think, is so difficult. And then in siblings, the one will react the other one. So
yes,
it's so important when you have in those situations to communicate how it makes you feel. So you need to tell them, it frustrates me a lot when I tell you something and you backchat. And what you've just done is backchatting so that they recognize that. And then the other one will come in and say, yes, I told you it's backchatting, all of that. And then there's a fight about that.
then there's
But,
another,
and yeah, so telling children what you want them to do is much more beneficial than telling them what not to do. So to tell them to stop backchatting is not going to be any help. So you say, it makes me frustrated, angry when you backchat me. What I would like you to do is to listen and then communicate with me. Tell me how you feel. Tell me what you want, but in a good communicative way. Don't backchat me. Tell me and say, I want to say something, because we all know the difference, but between I want to say something or I have an opinion versus backchat. And I must admit that backchatting is really difficult for me to deal with because it just pushes me over the edge.
what do you do? Because I sing
I
a little
give it,
song in my head. I,
yeah,
I
I
go
count to
to,
10, but then
okay.
I count to 10, but what helps for me is to give them a me message. So I really, when they backchat me, I will tell and say, when I say something and you say this back to me, it makes me feel very frustrated and angry. So I would like you, and then you give when you have a different opinion or you don't like what I say, is to say, Dad, I want to say something, and then you do it in a respectful way. So, and then we role play it to say, so I go back and say, so how does it make me feel? We repeat it. And what could you have done in this situation? This is it, because that's the only way. Backchatting it's like a reflex, so they don't have control over it. So they need to recognize it before it happens. It's like a tantrum. But when you give them me messages, it helps them to recognize, because they start seeing the impact that it has on people.
What do you do though? Because especially in adolescence, it's the extremities and the impulsivity overrides everything for a time period. And the guilt from backchatting
Mm.
can often have a huge impact on their self-esteem. So what do we do there? How do we gently, because often in the moment, I can't say what you did now was frustrating because they already slammed the door in my face.
Yeah.
What do I do then?
Yes. That's where again, you leave the door that they slammed. You don't run after them and repeat the same behavior, because then you are doing exactly what they are doing. Remember, we have to model calm behavior. So then you leave them, that they slam the door, you leave them for a while, and then again you connect before you correct. Then when they're calm and they come, because remember, they, a lot of the times, because of the development in the frontal area, where a lot of your
Mm.
behavior control is in the frontal part,
Yeah.
so that's still a mess when you're a teenager, and a part
Yeah.
of your identity is also forming around that. So let them throw the tantrum, let them slam the door, but
Mm.
then after a while, then you connect with them first so that they know they're in a safe environment, and then you talk about alternative ways. But if you run it down and say, in my house, you don't slam the door, and you shout at them and all of that,
Oh,
I know
shut
it's
up.
difficult, because you also need to get rid of you how you feel, because a lot of the time we keep on shouting just to get rid of our own
Yes.
frustrations, because it is terrible when they do it.
Mm.
But the correct way is literally to leave it and then wait until the right time, connect, and then you talk about what would have been the behavior that is appropriate. And then also listen to why. What was so
Mm.
frustrating to them? And a lot of the times they will tell you, you didn't hear me.
Mm.
And 90% of the time they actually correct. You
Right.
didn't hear me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
they're right. So you didn't hear them, but
Yeah.
you were busy with something else, and you're just
Yeah.
human. So you have to forgive yourself. But the guilt is when you are in that moment. But when you handle it better afterwards, then there's the guilt you can then deal with in that moment and say, it's all over now. So now we move on. We're going to try. It's part of growing up. It's a natural process, and then explain to them how it works.
I think as parents, we're so quick to chase after them because when they are younger, you kind of need to correct immediately. Don't hold a fork like that. Don't run into that glass window. So as they grow, our parenting hasn't yet grown, and we impulsively chase after them because we want to correct straight away. But it's so important what you're saying. Step away, let them calm down, and then connect, because you'll never be able to have that conversation or have a lasting impact of what it means when they backchat if they are still angry. And they stay angry for quite some time. So it might be a cup of tea
So
just before bedtime where you can connect rather than straight away.
yeah, it's you need
Mm.
to give them time to cool down. That cool down period is
Yeah,
it's beneficial for both of you. It's
definitely.
good for the child, it's also good for the parents.
Mm.
Sam, I would like you to talk a little bit about being fair and understanding with your children. Because it is so different for different children. So how can you be fair and understanding with each of your of your children?
Like, I think the general theme that we've spoken about tonight is connection. And for some children, fairness is the absolute gauntlet when it comes to conflict and comes to sibling rivalry. But fairness can mean so many things. And at the end of the day, us as parents need to decide what is the crucial element that's important here. So, is it that everyone has 6 chores on the list to do? Or is it that you do chores that are your strengths? So, I'm not going to give my clumsy child the dishwasher to unpack, but they can happily sweep the floor. And you might give out those chores to the child's strength. They might feel it's unfair, but the rationalization behind why you've given those particular chores. And this is a very practical example, but it means so much if you can then explain yourself. We sometimes feel that I'm the parent, I'm the boss, everyone must just do as I say, but that's not the reality. That's how our children become emotionally stunted, when they don't understand the rationalization behind our reasoning. And if you can tell them, look, dishes often slip out of your hands, so dishwasher's not for you. The broom and sweeping the floor is for you because you're fabulous at that. And Jack, you're going to do the dishwasher. But it's explaining and reasoning, and I think that is where fairness and understanding comes in. Is the idea of I'm the boss, just do as I say. it really doesn't speak to development. It doesn't speak to growth, and it doesn't speak to calm in your home. You know, calmness, and we're all in this together. There's fairness and there's understanding. So if you can make sure that you connect, make sure that you align things to your children's strengths, that's the best way to show fairness and understanding. Even though things are different for everybody, but if you can verbalize why and how, it makes all the difference.
Sam, I want you to put your psychologist hat on now, because we've talked up to now when it's part of the normal family and it's family life and growing up, and it's like normal civil rivaling that will happen, and it's really good for children sometimes if they have that. But what about when it becomes a problem? When it
Mm.
becomes bullying? When what should you do? First, how should you recognize it, and what should you do as a parent? Because you're now desperate because you can see the one child is really fading away because
Mm.
of the other one, and it turned out into real bullying and really toxic behavior.
That can happen, and it's important to acknowledge it first off. It's very difficult as a parent to actually realize where that boundary is because it so subtly becomes a problem. I think the key indicators are vindictiveness and remorse. I think if you find that there is vindictiveness without remorse on the one side more than the other, that is times for you to go, there's red flags, and I need to provide my child with support. And it doesn't mean that there's going to be personality disorders and diagnosis and all those things, but it is important to acknowledge it and to bring in support. Because often it is a tweak in the dynamics that you cannot see because you're inside the dynamic, and an outside person is able to then, explain and work with you, and you're able to regulate the situation. It could also mean that the one personality is so much more dominant than the other, and you as a parent need support to uplift the child that is being brought down, and to empower that child with language and skills to be able to stand up for themselves. But the biggest thing for me is, don't fear it. Be aware of it and seek help when you see it. Because I think for long-term sibling relationships, the worst thing a parent can do is to ignore when it becomes a problem. And for me, the key indicators of the problem are vindictiveness and lack of remorse. I don't know if you want to
So,
add a little bit about situations that you've seen in your experience, but for
yeah,
me, that sums it up.
when I pick up, I work a lot with families that are in trouble, and
Mm.
um, one of the things that people always is like they ask me, so who should I go to?
Okay.
And one of the best professions that people are so scared of for some reason, and it might be stigmatized for many reasons, but
Hmm.
there are social workers
Yeah.
who specialize in family dynamics. So they come to you and they really help you. This is their field. So
Mm.
you will find family social workers. They're not going to take your children away. They will come and they will help you with the family dynamics in your house. So it is sometimes the best way of dealing it. Yes, then you can, with the help of the social worker, refer people and you get them in private practice. So it's like you go to them, you talk about your problem. They say, okay, I'm going to do a house visit. They come and they see the children in action. They give you hands-on things that you can do. And if they feel that the child needs some extra help, they will also tell you where you can go to. Sometimes it's an educational psychologist, depending on the child's age. Sometimes it's a play therapist, and sometimes it's a psychologist, and sometimes it's a psychiatrist. So there are so many people in this field, but one of the best ways to start with this is to take up the phone and phone a family social
Sure.
worker. And there are many different kinds of trainings that they have. Don't be scared of doing it. It will be one of the best decisions that you've ever made. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, no, it's very true because, often us psychologists and the psychiatrists and the doctors and all of the speech therapists, and we find, we find a barrier, we help with the barrier, we put the intervention into barriers, but a social worker looks at the broad aspect of family, and that's what I love about it. And they really are the ones that are going to come in and say, move the children to 2 separate bedrooms. You guys will sit on the couch here at night, eat at this table. It's really, really practical, solid guidance. And you're right, we shouldn't be scared of them, because social workers are not there to take your children away. Believe me, they have enough trouble on their hands. They don't want to take your children away. There's no
They've got
place.
nowhere to they've got nowhere to
Exactly.
go with them these days.
Yeah, they want to make your family healthy, definitely. And they,
But
like you
it's
said, they
very
will then
hands-on.
refer for the psychologist. Yeah.
And I worked in my experience with amazing people who really came up with wonderful strategies for families to really work, and it's just, I was just amazed with the results. And then sometimes they help you to refer the child if they need special attention, but don't be
Exactly.
scared for taking that route. Sam, we're at the end. Some closing remarks from you on sibling rivalry?
Do what you need to keep your sanity. Don't let sibling rivalry make you feel less than a parent. It's really a natural process that we all go through in families. But please, please, for me, the biggest thing is have a one size fit all stop to rivalry that's happening, so that the children can separate, regulate, and then connect before you correct. I think those are the main points from today's chat.
I couldn't have ended the conversation better. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. And we look forward in future to have more of these conversations. But thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you soon again. And from me, Johan van Lill, goodbye. And from Sam, thank you,
Bye
Sam. And
bye.
Sam, it was lovely. It was lovely talking to you. Thank you
It's
so
lovely.
much, and have
Thank
a
you.
lovely evening. Thank you.
Bye
Bye.
bye.